I don't know if I can without crying.
It's okay.
He went for a run and found a penny, and always does when he goes running. Not always, but finds coins and just never stops to pick them up. But that morning he picked it up, and it was a penny. And then a couple weeks later, he got an email from Kevin Bavery about the pennies from heaven.
Yeah, it was.
So now whenever we find a penny, we pick it up and think about his dad.
Yeah. Yeah, those things, they're meaningless to most people, but they're priceless to us, you know. So we'll grab a penny whenever we see one on the ground. Yeah.
I used to smoke when I felt sad or down. I worried about how quitting smoking might affect my mood. But since I quit, I feel so much happier. My tip is, there is life after cigarettes, and it may be better than you ever thought it could be.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Just for pure entertainment and also
Okay, good evening. We'll get started. I call the Village Board to Oregon for Monday, August 3rd, 2026 to order, and ask the clerk to call roll, please.
Higgins?
Here.
Kirchdorfer?
Here.
Knipfer?
Here.
Lease?
Here.
Marks?
Here.
McDaniel?
Here.
And Van Campen.
Here, thank you. Item 3, approval of July 20th, 2026 Village Board meetings, if correct. Chair will entertain a motion. Kirchdorfer and Higgins. Corrections, comments? Hearing none, we have a motion by Kirchdorfer, second by Higgins. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 4, public appearances, comments, and communications. Item 4, discussion and/or possible action. Public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the village board, including items both on and off the agenda. Under the open meetings law, this agenda item allows the board to receive information and to ask questions of a presenter. Board members may discuss procedural matters related to the information, such as whether the information is directed to staff, referred to a committee, or placed on a future board agenda. However, board members may not expand their discussion beyond such procedural matters. 15 minutes will be provided for this item with a 3-minute maximum per speaker. We have 2 people registered. First is, as we know well, Amanda Peterson. You know the drill, Amanda.
Yes, I do. My name is Amanda Peterson. I live at 301 South Main Street in the Village of Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as a resident of the Village of Oregon, a parent of an OHS student who just graduated, and as an employee and representative of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin to speak in support of item 9B on the agenda. Many of you know that the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin is a nonpartisan political organization that works to empower voters and defend democracy. We believe in principles of good governance, including transparency and accountability. The League supports similar efforts like this around school funding transparency in other school districts and municipalities. Taxpayers have the right to know where their tax dollars are being spent and to hold their government representatives accountable for their decisions. The amount of money I pay to the Oregon School District is on my tax bill. However, a portion of that money actually follows a small number of students to voucher and independent charter schools where taxpayers lose oversight of that money. There is no school board or oversight agency to monitor how funds are spent or measure educational outcomes in the same way that there is for public schools. At voucher and independent charter schools, there is no one to complain to or vote out of office if you are unsatisfied. How can we expect citizens to be educated about school funding, vote on school referenda, and hold government representatives accountable when they have incomplete information? These hidden sub-slices of the public school funding pie should be on every property tax bill in Wisconsin. The League and I urge you to support this tax transparency project. Just speaking as myself, how much time do I have?
1 minute.
1 minute, great. Speaking as just myself as a village resident and a former board member, I read Administrator Shank's memo in the packet, and he brings up some items for your consideration that I would like to address. Number 1, other school districts and municipalities have already passed this. Green Bay and Cottage Grove are 2 that have already navigated some of these issues. So I would encourage Administrator Shanks to reach out to those municipalities to get more information about how they chose to do this. Number 2, the Oregon School District will be a good partner. Andy Weiland, as you know, is the business manager for the school district and treasurer of WASBO. He's already indicated that he's willing to help the village navigate what needs to be done and minimize costs for the village wherever possible. And my last point, 3, overall costs for this should be minimal. I, as a taxpayer, would be fine with some funds going to this because governmental transparency is priceless. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Perfect, thank you. Next, Carleen Betchen, another alumnus of the village board. Hello, Some of us are so new, they probably don't know who
Yeah,
you
some
are.
of you don't know me. I used to sit where pages. Good afternoon. My name is Carlene Beshen, and I live at 683 Ridgeview Lane here in Oregon. I'm here tonight as a retired Wisconsin public educator, the daughter of a public educator, albeit in North Carolina, the parent of a Wisconsin public educator, and an OHS graduate, two different people, and the grandparent of children who are currently attending Wisconsin public schools. I am concerned about the lack of transparency regarding the way public education in Wisconsin is funded. The amount of some certain real dollars allocated has been inadequate for more than 2 decades. The formula of revenue caps and reimbursement is extremely complicated and very difficult to follow. Much of the burden for financing public education has been shifted to local property taxpayers. As a local property taxpayer, when I look at the bill that arrives in my mailbox each November, public education is a single line item that reads Oregon School District. Actually, Rick went and pulled it out so I could see exactly what it said. The number listed there doesn't tell the whole story and is misleading. The amount included under the district's line item amount should be transparent about how much of that money goes to public schools and how much is going to private voucher and independent charter schools. And I just want to do a little addendum to what Amanda said. It doesn't follow specific children. This is money that comes right off the top that is not attached to any Oregon school district child that goes elsewhere. This is a formula that goes to private voucher schools and independent charter schools. Taxpayers have a right to transparency regarding the amount that is levied for private voucher and independent non-district charter schools under the public school district's line of the tax bill that does not actually support district-run public schools. School districts and municipalities around the state, including Eau Claire, Green Bay, Milwaukee, the city of Racine, Cottage Grove, and others, have passed tax transparency resolutions at the school board level and by the municipalities where those school districts are located. As a former village board trustee, I appreciate the very thorough memo that Martin put together, and I'd like to address a couple of the concerns he brought up. There's disagreement about whether the property tax bill can be itemized, and my understanding from others who are working on this around the state is that there will be a statement soon that clarifies what is and is not acceptable regarding itemization. That has not been clarified yet. Option 1, Andy Wieland, as Amanda said, the OSD business manager and the treasurer of the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, has told me personally that he is happy to help with this in any way. Option 2, concerned Oregon School District residents and taxpayers have been contacting village board, town board members of the 10 municipalities in the Oregon School District to let them know about this request and advocate for it. We plan to attend as many municipal meetings as possible.
Carlene,
Yes.
just if you could wrap it up.
Yep. Option 3, as she said, Green Bay and Cottage Grove have done this. And finally, as a taxpayer, I really hope that you will take action on this and decide to support it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments?
I have a couple more.
Okay,
Are you okay if I just call them up?
please.
Okay. All right, I have, another one. Joshua Coughlin. Oh, I didn't register. Okay, you did not, I'm sorry. All right, just in favor, all right. Register only, register only. Actually, those are all, oh, one more to speak. John Dellen? All right, come on up.
John Dillman,
Hey, John.
917 Katy Lane, Oregon. I'll take 30 seconds. Did I miss something?
Can you repeat it into the mic?
John Dillman, 917 Katy Lane, Oregon.
Thank you.
I'm just asking you, board members, if any of you are going to be attending Thursday's meeting with the Planning Commission regarding Foxborough Golf Course, to intently listen and empathize and sympathize with the residents there to what their wishes are, and hopes that a positive resolution can happen for the residents that have been there for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comments? Okay, thank you. Item 5, approve of vouchers in the amount of $638,075.47. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Knipper and Lease. Questions on these vouchers? Matt?
Quick questions. Page 1, 9,000, I think $50 for dog tags. I'm just curious as what that's about. Is it like dog tags like humans wear or dog tags that dogs wear?
Nope,
And why is it $9,000?
It's actually a pass-through to the county. We have to pay the county for because they are Dane County tags. So we send, that's their portion of the Dane County.
Got it.
Other questions? Okay, it's a roll call vote. Motion by Knipper, second by Lees.
Kirchdorfer,
Yes.
McDaniel. Yes. Van Campen,
Yes.
Marks,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Knipfer,
Yes.
and Lees.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6, consent agenda. Items 6A through 6E. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Kirchdorfer and Higgins. Questions on any of these items? Seeing none. Motion by Kirchdorfer, second by Higgins. All those in favor, all those indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 7, reports of committees and for discussion and or possible action. A, Park Board 1, presentation by JT Engineering regarding proposed Bethel Greenacre Park Master Plan. Park Board, Plan Commission, and staff recommendation, motion to approve master plan as presented. And please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm Stephanie Thompson with JT Engineering. First of all, I want to thank,
Your mic a little closer. Thank you.
just want to thank the Village Board for this opportunity for JT to be involved in the master plan of Bethel Greenacre Park. We are a full-service civil engineering firm, and we are located in Oregon on Netherwood. So I'm going to give a brief overview presentation of the master plan process and where we're at with that plan. So we started the project with a startup meeting and quite a bit of stakeholder and public input engagement. From that stakeholder engagement, where we met with specific stakeholders throughout the village, including, let's see here, we met with public safety, the school district, nature, Rotary, Scouts, youth sports, youth engagement, so childcare facilities, the youth center, the library, other community groups, and adjacent residents. And from those individual meetings with the stakeholders, we were able to develop 2 different concept plans that we presented at a public meeting. The public meeting was held at the park. So here are a couple photos from that public meeting. So the public involvement meeting included, different flyers distributed to get engagement for residents to attend the meeting. But we had over 30 people attend, which is actually a really good turnout. What was especially great about this public meeting is the diversity of the meeting, of the attendees. So we had children attending, which mostly public meetings, you don't really have a lot of children attending. So that was great to see the children looking at the different exhibits, looking at the different concepts, parents and grandparents. So there was a diverse amount of ages and users for the park. We had different posters displayed at the park showing 2 different master planning concepts, and we also received 21 individual surveys with comments about what they liked, what they didn't like about the different concepts. So with that concept planning, again, we looked at what are the existing conditions. So as you guys are familiar with this park, there is a railroad to be considered, wetlands, stormwater, existing vegetation, and the neighboring properties of the community. The input that we received is that a lot of people would like to see this be a nature-based park. They want a park that is diverse for different ages and inclusive play. They were looking at trails and different activities that could be held at that park, flexible small event space, interactive and participatory spaces, and then make sure it's neighborhood-based. We also looked at a lot of like the historic components to incorporate into that design. And of course, we worked very closely with your amazing village staff with numerous meetings to talk through the different plans, especially getting the park maintenance input on what would maintenance look like, how can we reduce maintenance costs. So here you'll see the two concepts. So you'll see concept A and concept B. They are somewhat similar, but also have some very unique features. Concept A is a little bit further off from the road. It includes the pavilion to be more on the north side of the park. And it also includes a walking path that goes along or all the way around the perimeter of the park. It includes a futsal basketball court at the bottom, which currently there is a basketball court located near that location. And then there is playground equipment, including some different types of use. A few different comments that we received is that this should be a park that is unlike any other in the village. So something really unique that the village does not currently already have. So as you'll see in this concept A rendering, that would be a ropes course that the village does not currently have. There's also some log play that we incorporated into this design. Concept B is also, pretty similar. The park structure, parking area would be closer to the roadway with the pavilion in the center. Both concepts, as you can see in the middle, that darker green swale drainage way, both concepts are taking the drainage into account of the park. Also looking at different open space and then native planting. So again, that native planting is what's going to help reduce that maintenance cost instead of mowing the majority of the park. Overall, if we can scroll down to those concepts. So overall, we had 2 different pavilions that we presented as well. So we have an architect on the team who came up with these 2 concepts. So the pavilion would be just 2 restrooms and a janitor's closet. This pavilion is showing one restroom being a bit larger to accommodate a family. Also having a covered space so that there can be events and some shelter at this space. Some protection from sun, rain. The concept B has more of a rectangular structure, and this is showing accommodations for like stormwater or more of an outdoor stormwater educational space. But both of those concepts are 2 bathrooms and a janitor's closet with some covered portion of that pavilion. So it could be rented out, used for parties or whatnot. Overall, the final master plan, we took all the feedback that we received from the stakeholders, from the public meeting, from the staff, and this is the final draft of the master plan. So it's more of the concept A. So you'll see that, a couple of the comments that we received is a concern about safety, so making sure that the play area is not right up against the road. So this concept A has it, but there's a buffer zone between the play area and the roadway. We also incorporated, there was a lot of comments on, including some traditional playground equipment such as swings and sandboxes. So we incorporated a couple of those into the nodes along the mode pathways. And this also accommodates, again, the drainage, the pathway, the playground structure. So here are just some renderings of what this concept would look like. So again, that pavilion and what the different concepts can be for what the outside. At this point, we're looking at like a wood, log, timber, going back to that native rustic look. This also could be easy to maintain. If it were to get some paint on it or something, you can sand it off. It keeps with that rustic look. And then there's some other concepts, if you want to scroll over, to show like what could those nodes look like, what can some of that playground equipment look like. So again, in master planning, these are just concepts that we're looking at, and these can all be modified based on how we want to implement the master plan. So that, and then we also looked at the costs. So with that, we used the CIP budget as guidance for the cost of the master plan. But with that, we were, incorporating, what's not reflective of this is the lower maintenance cost of this concept based on what is being maintained currently. There's quite a bit of the grass and the park that is being mowed. The equipment currently is at the end of its useful life and requires a little bit more on the maintenance end. However, I think it's community center is interested. Youth center is interested in repurposing that equipment, if possible. But overall, the estimate of this cost was to stay in line with that CIP budget. Any questions?
Before we start our discussion, I was remiss, we should get a motion on the floor, please, on this item. Lynn and Paige. Okay, questions for our presenter? And Matt, you're next.
Okay, well, my first comments are, I'm so excited to see something more natural play. I think that the village has been in need of something like that. So some of the concept pictures looked really interesting to me. It's not the traditional play set that we see a lot of, and I think it really fits well into this park because of all of the nature that is surrounding it. So I really appreciate that. I did have a couple of questions, and one of my fatal flaws in this role is that sometimes I get too locked into the details at a time where I don't need to worry about the details. I know, you're all thinking it. It's okay. So please just correct me if you're like, you're too far down the road, you got to come back a little bit. We're not there yet, okay? One of the things I'm wondering about is the mulch. So I'm not entirely sure how much of this is mulch, but is most of it mulched instead of the, what do we call that? Pour in place.
Yes, so that is a cost. Again, this is a master plan, so it's flexible. We are already looking at where are there ways that we can save costs, how do you value engineer. With the mulch, there is that, so I think what you're referring to is like that rubber, the rubber, I don't know what the technical term of that surface, the rubber surface is. That is more costly than mulch. So at this point, what we're proposing is to have a concrete ribbon, curbed ribbon around the play area so that at some point, if you would like to add that rubber surface, that can easily be done. But at this time, it would be lower cost to have a mulch, and the concrete curb will keep that mulch in. And we've discussed that with the village staff on maintenance-wise, how it'd be easier. How do they, back up and dump the mulch? How often will they have to do that? So, yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, as long as there's conversations being had, I kind of immediately have this gut reaction to it because the maintenance of it can often be pretty intensive. And I think my view of this is like, while I obviously care very deeply about the budget, I'd rather preemptively spend some money to like relieve some stress off of the staff to maintain what looks like a very large amount of mulch. So, but if there's conversations being had on that, I think that's great. And then my only other question is a little bit for chief and a little bit for staff in general. This path that goes around the perimeter, it looks to me like there's one entrance and one exit, right? Basically from the play area. I know for like public safety, that can sometimes be concerning, and we have the UTV available for things like that. But when you look at something like this, does that perimeter pathway with just one entrance and one exit spark a concern to you in terms of accessibility?
Yeah, it's, a couple of the things we talked about when they spoke with stakeholders was, it'd be great to have more than one entrance and exit. However, just simply getting a wide enough path for a vehicle to go down. Yes, we use our UTV, we're actually using it quite a bit now. It's making a difference, but we don't have that readily available. We're not driving around in it constantly. So example would be, let's say we have a child out there playing and suddenly now they're choking. We don't want to go grab the UTV. We want to get out there as fast as we
Right.
can to provide aid. And when we bring a squad or, and not to speak for the fire department, but an ambulance, we get to bring all that gear with us. So we want something wide enough and that's drivable. The other concern we had, it's not as much, knock on wood right now, but historically it's been an issue, is the railroad tracks. We have issues with juveniles. And sometimes people committing burglaries or theft from autos that like to use the railroad tracks as a quick way to hop up and hop down. Obviously the drone now and our UTV help with that, but it's a challenge because some of that's really steep to get up on. So what we recommended to these guys was, we understand we want this nice wildlife and green space, but if we can see at least back to know it's safe, because the last thing I would hate to see is that we're not thinking about those things and suddenly it becomes unsafe and it's not used. And here it was a big investment. So those were things that we asked them to consider.
Great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I guess one more point with that is there is a culvert that is proposed. You can see there's 2 culverts because of their drainage swale, and we will make sure that those culverts can accommodate a vehicle, because Parks also needs to accommodate like a large truck to get back there. So,
Thank you.
Matt, I think you're up next.
Yeah, no, thanks for the presentation. It's really great. You guys did good work on this, for sure. And just to level set with everybody, I am on the park board as well, and there I voted no for this park. It's a great design, and my concern really is with the cost of it. I'm trying not to lean back as I have it with the microphone, but so with that in mind, you mentioned you did some public comments and outreach in that. There was about 30 people there, is that right? Of those 30 people, how many were kids and grandparents versus parents that live in the community? Just a wag, I'm just curious.
can you say that again? How many were?
So was the 30 people, was that all people, or was that counting children and grandparents as well?
It would be counting not the children, I
Got
would
it.
say. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Lauren, it was grandparent, and then I'll say from specifically, like a grandparent said, I really want to swing because I like pushing my grandchild in a swing.
Right.
So I'm talking specifically about the parents who are, we didn't count children, but it was fun to see the children.
Right.
And the parents interacting with their children and saying, what do you think about this? What would you like here? And them being really, the kids being really excited about the ropes course or something different. And I think one thing also to keep in mind I know this is a neighborhood park, but when you do have a park that's unique, just speaking as a mother of 3, you will bike there, you will drive there, you will, do anything to entertain your children. So, this is in a very heavily residential area that it will be widely used by that neighborhood, but then also I could see it drawing the greater, village residents as well.
Gotcha, that's super helpful, and totally get it. So with that in mind, and the public safety potentially concerns in mind, and the cost and that, do you guys have a tier on this? Like, this is the final master plan, but is there option B, C, D, whatnot?
No, so the part of the master plan is now we would go into engineering. So when we go into design and engineering, and again, keep in mind that these costs on the master plan are not real drilled in because we don't have designs to get quantities off of or to really get solid numbers from. So these are high level numbers and a big contingency. So as we move into the design, one thing we could do is like that orange mulch area, we could reduce that a bit, if we wanted to like make that a bit smaller. We could look at the native seating, where could we reduce that area? So there are things, the basketball court, we could keep the existing basketball court and not have that new court. So there are different options that we'll get into at this point, working with the village on, where can we reduce the cost, but still keep the intent of what was presented to the public and, really what the public is asking for and would like to see from this park.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Tim?
Yeah, I love this design, but I think the cost is too high. And I think when we get to the CIP discussion we're going to have later, we're going to see, we're really at a point where we have to cut something out of the CIP in the next 10 years. And our choices are going to be road projects, sewer projects, water utility projects, and those are projects that if you cut them or defer them, it winds up costing you later. It's penny wise and dollar foolish later. And of all the things on the list, this is the one that just stands out as don't spend this money right now because of the debt load that we have. So I'm going to vote no on this.
I just got a procedural question more than anything. So,
Please.
I mean, as is, I'm still a no vote, as I was on the park board. That is not discounting what you guys did. I think it looks amazing, right? But for other reasons others mentioned as well, is there a point to relook?
Yeah.
How about this? I believe this park needs fixed. There's some rust spots. There's some maintenance issues. There's some things that probably need to be done for safety and that. But I don't know the right place to do that. So.
And you can help me out if you need to there, but what we'll do is deal with a motion on the floor, and then a motion can be made after that to maybe provide other direction that the board would like to see. Okay. The park board and Public Works and the engineer go on. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I will also be voting no on this, and I should say I speak to Lauren about this, and I regret that I didn't catch this last year in the CIP, but when I looked at the debt plan for this year, then I started to reflect on it, and there are particular elements that I thought were too expensive. And one is there's one piece of equipment, the playground equipment, the net climb. I don't know if you remember that from the thing that cost, that single piece alone is $150,000. That sounds more like something you would put in like J.C. Park or something like with more traffic. For a park that has no restroom now, we're going to add a restroom, a pavilion for $600,000. I believe we could do that in half. And I did talk to Lauren about options there. And there seems to be an excessive amount of concrete. But the budget for this park is twice what we're spending right now on Gary Dish Park, which really opened my eyes to this. So as Mark mentioned, the park board did approve this, but it was a split vote, 3-2, with those opposed were opposed specifically over the total cost. So I'll be voting no on this motion. Further comments before we vote? Okay. Motion at hand is to approve as presented. I'm going to have a roll call vote on this, please.
All right, Knipper,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Marks,
Yes.
Van Campen,
No.
and Kirchdorfer,
No.
and Higgins.
No.
Okay.
So I have 4 no's, right?
Lease, you missed one. I didn't get to vote.
Oh,
I'm a no, so.
so that'd be 4 no's.
4-3, yeah, okay. So now we could choose to give some direction, as you were alluding to, Matt.
Yeah, so if I could make a motion, it would be to revisit this, but with a few different options. One being looking at the existing structure that's there and replacing that with something that's more safe and not rusted out. And I don't know what that looks like, but like a baseline, here's the park, this is what it looks like. Second option, maybe one tier up from that, considering public works input and safety inputs, of course, with drainage, I know that's been an issue over there as well. And then maybe keep this, I'll still be a no vote on this, but, if we want to keep it in the mix or something along those lines.
Okay. I think, without getting too far into the design, I think if we just gave them a revised budget, they would then have a target number to work within, without us starting to specifically design the park. Other ideas. Right.
Yeah, I guess just where my thoughts are on this, I think that investing in our neighborhood parks is crucial. I hear you and I understand like we have some real gems, but when it comes to the infill development of Oregon, I think we have to be able to look at our parks as those things that bring people to those homes that exist and aren't brand new builds. Like I love Gary Dish Park. I'm right next to Gary Dish Park, but Gary Dish Park is surrounded by brand new builds and people who have the funds to afford really expensive homes, and that's great for them. But I think we cannot ignore that these families deserve to have super high quality parks as well. I do agree with you, Phil. I think partnership is probably the name of the game here. And one of the nice things about Oregon is we have a really robust nature alliance. We have rain garden plans. We have put those things into place already. So those might be great places for partnership where, you can defer cost. I know, like, for instance, the Nature Alliance does native planting like 3 times a year and they have a ton. And so maybe if we indicate to them that this is something that we would need in the next couple of years, we can kind of create some partnerships. And I know sustainability has done rain gardens in the past and things like that. So I do agree. I think the more we can encourage partnership to reduce the cost and make the majority of the board feel better, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Rick.
I just want to say that I was really appreciative of the uniqueness of the park and the features that it had there and the feel that it had at trying to be unique in its format and not sort of sticking with what every other park has. I also appreciated that it would make it look new. So whatever options that we are coming up with, as much as I do appreciate the cost and everything, I would rather that it at least feel more than just maintenance being done on the park. I think we do maintenance on the park all the time, every day, and I would not want this neighborhood to feel like somehow the master plan has shortchanged their neighborhood.
Okay. Tim.
So what if we asked for, what could we do, keeping as much of the concept as is here, because I think we all like the ideas that are presented here. What could we do for a third of the original budget? What could we do for a half of the original budget? Make a choice from that. Because I think those both fit financially a lot better. Would that make sense?
I think that's, along the lines I'm thinking. And I was thinking, it is a park that's been neglected a long time, and I think Lynn makes a good point about this neighborhood deserves a nice park. I had in my notes here that I would like to see the cost reduced to $1 million. That's a third, plus contingency. But I'm willing, if your motion would be for less, I would certainly want to entertain that.
Phil, have a comment? What? Can I have a comment?
Please.
Is the budget concern the mixture of how it's funded, or is it just the number itself?
I think it's the total. What do you think?
To me, it's the number in context of the 10-year CIP that we're going to get into a little bit later tonight. And when I look at the list of the broad categories of what's on there, like, can't really cut here, can't cut here. This one, maybe.
Sure. Would, like you said, Tim, it sounds like most people like the vision that's here. It's just the number, obviously. Is it a matter of if it's 1.5, is it more acceptable if, for example, we can find a different source of funding that is not debt or property tax based? The first thing that comes to mind is park impact fees. We have a lot of fees that we collect off of new development. If it's a target, $1 million is what we're willing to accept as financing. We can look at using $500,000 of park impact fees to offset the rest of that cost. A number of our projects that we've done, Highlands of Netherwood, portions of JC Park, we took out debt for those projects, but portions of that debt service payment are being covered by park impact fees, so they're not actually hitting property taxes. So is it just the mixture of how this is funded is important, or is it we just don't like that it's $1.5 million?
I think I can speak for the board. We assumed that was all going to be debt.
Right.
And that's what we're jumping
That's
to.
specifically what I was referring to, yes.
Sure. So if we like the vision and it's just a matter of, well, is there some other mixture of funding that we can try to prioritize to alleviate the concern about the debt part of it? I think we could take a look at that and maybe forecast that out and see what people are comfortable with.
Tom?
I guess I want to speak to the parts that I like about this that I want to keep in. And I guess part of the way the park is laid out now, there's a huge swale of wetlands that goes through that makes it really the whole eastern part of that park along the railroad tracks difficult to access, to use. And we have all kinds of problems getting there, and even trying to mow in basically what becomes a swamp after a rain like we had over the weekend. It's a difficult to maintain area. So turning that into a nature preserve, nature resort, it seems like a great use of that area. Makes it more acceptable to the public. I like the idea of a walking path through that. I guess where I lose it, and in relationship to the cost, is when we start talking about all the equipment and the facility, the expensive parts of it. So I guess that's where I would focus on. I want to keep it, moving towards a nature preserve type of arrangement where we can maintain it more economically. Those things that's what's gonna appeal to me, at least when I look at the next alternative, which I'm assuming there'll be another alternative. The artistic design of a shelter, so forth, if they can get in and out under the rain, I think they'd be really happy. And if there's a restroom, that's sort of a bonus. It doesn't have to be round, it doesn't have to be fancy. They are appealing, but maybe more just a natural kind of space.
I will just add that we did talk with the architect about a pre-manufactured versus this custom, and that the majority of the cost is more in the infrastructure of the building, like getting the sewer, water. It's not much less expensive to have a pre-manufactured facility. So it could be where we just have one bathroom instead of two.
Yeah.
That would help reduce this.
I respectfully disagree. You could pass that along to him.
Okay.
I guess I'm just going back to the things that I like, which is the nature preserve element of it, controlling the water through there. I think that helps us in our maintenance and use of the property and the use of the facilities. That's the parts I like. The other parts, you'll have to wow me with the design, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Just one more, and I agree with Tom. I basically agree with everything that's been said in one form or fashion. But I'd also like to see at the bottom of the tier replacing the structure that's there, right, and then accounting for any water issues that are there, as small as we can pay. And we'll get into this with the CIP discussion, theory on this later. But I think that option should be on the table based on just decisions down the road on the budget.
Did you say replacing the weir?
No, the structure that's
Oh,
there.
the pavilion structure that's there?
Yeah, or in the playground equipment. I know there's some rust in it and that, and So kind of like the base model as well.
Oh.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Go ahead, Tom.
I guess going back to Martin's comment, alternatives in financing or funding would make this more appealing. The assumption I think everybody had on here was this is part of the CIP and this is another hit on the CIP, and we've got enough of those right now.
Okay, so Lynn, go ahead then.
Sorry, I was just going to summarize by saying I think that maybe we do both things at once. Maybe we bring this cost down a little bit and see if we can do some of those kind of creative thinking, like things like the basketball court. I think keeping it where it is a decent idea. And then also, coming at it the other side with some park impact fees. I think kind of approaching it both sides is helpful.
So we, perhaps we can arrive at a number that, our high number. Martin has introduced the element of that potentially over a certain amount that could be funded with park impact fees, but there still seems to be some level of discomfort with the board with the total budget. So perhaps we could come up, first of all, with a number not to exceed.
Could I suggest that we defer that decision until we get into the CIP?
Well, we can defer to the whole thing until next month.
That's my context for the whole question, is how does it affect the total borrowing and that borrowing getting up above our 75% limit? I don't want to be the board that authorizes us going over that limit.
Right, but in the overall total debt that we're carrying, $500,000 one way or the other is not,
Yeah. That's not going to make the difference.
Right. Yeah. I think I think we started a discussion with some feeling of discomfort with the total budget. And we also talked about potentially that we could, as Matt suggested, what's the least expensive, nice, decent park versus what's the most that we're willing to spend. And it sounds like I'm getting the feeling that everybody's comfortable with spending a little less. Not necessarily cutting out one particular thing or the other, but just spending a little less. So I'm going to throw out and say, 1.2 million plus contingency. Anyone want to argue that number up or down?
I'd go down from that.
So that'd be the maximum.
The problem is I don't know the bottom, right?
Right.
So, is it 100,000? Is it 500,000?
Well, I think the bottom is probably 750,000.
Got it.
It's at least $500,000. So it sounds like generally we could agree that 1.25 plus contingency would be our upper limit. I don't see anybody's, And then as far as Matt's concerned, what would be a basic playground equipment like we're doing at Gary Dish or Highlands and Otherwood, something like that, where it's kind of a single unit, all encompassing. So I think that's the other, Elisa, I'm sorry.
Oh, Lauren wanted to speak a little bit about playground equipment costs and.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say that the playground equipment at Gary Dish is approximately $150,000.
Oh,
well, that's our bottom. There you
That's
go.
kind of the going rate for playground equipment these days.
there you go. Lynn.
Yeah, Phil, I was with you all until we got to the playground equipment. I still think we should have something that's more natural play here.
Well, I think at 1.2 million, I think we could get a lot closer to
Yeah.
that.
I think so too. I totally support that. I think, but we should try and keep the essence of what this plan is, because I think we all agree that this plan is, I mean, I guess I shouldn't speak for, but it sounded to me like everyone seemed okay with the plan.
Yeah, and I think at 1.2 million, we could probably come close. Go ahead, Tom.
I just, 1.2 million, would that include some funding through impact fees or?
No, I think, well, we can give the direction, whatever direction we want to give. I want to arrive at a maximum number, though. How it's funded, we can have that discussion next, but there has to be, I think we're better off first to come up with a maximum number, then decide how we're going to fund that. Okay, and it sounds like 1.2 is something we can all live with. And then, so, and we'll say that the bottom would be, I think, $750,000. I would rather not get into specifics of what to be included and what's not. We're not,
That's park board's.
we're not, that's somebody else's job. So the motion could be to that essence, and then if we want to address, if we want to take some of the money from park impact fees, we could also address that in the same motion. Do we want to do that?
Would that be considered, in the financing, or would we need to come up with real dollars?
No, I think we can just make that part of
Yeah,
it.
can I just remind everybody to speak into your mics?
Yeah, sorry.
But it might be helpful because it sounds like a lot of folks are sort of looking at this in the context of the CIP. So it might be helpful to wait and go through this initial presentation that we have tonight. There is a little bit of new information. There was some numbers released by the state late last week. Makes things maybe a little bit nicer looking at the CIP, depending on your opinion. But that might help inform this conversation a little bit better. And then maybe this conversation can be picked up at the next meeting.
I should agree with that. Do we need to do like a motion to punt?
No,
or-
I
okay.
can just move on.
Okay.
You can if you want, but.
That's good.
That's, anyone disagree? Okay, moving on. In deference to our alumni, we will move
Thank
to
you.
9B, because I think that's
Thanks,
why
Stephanie.
they're, and without objection, we'll move to 9B and discuss the review Oregon School District Resolution request that the village include an annual property tax bills, the portion of the district's levy attributable to independent charter schools, Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, and the Special Needs Scholarship Program. Martin, did you want to speak to beyond your memo? Or?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. This is an action item, so we can take a motion or we can discuss.
Let's discuss.
Please go ahead,
Okay.
Tim.
So when this first came to my attention, I was very interested in it. I'm a huge fan of transparency. And my first question was, how much of my tax bill is going to charter schools? And I don't know that, and I want to know that. Whether or not that means it has to be on my tax bill itemized, that isn't as important to me. If it was an insert, that would be fine. The other thing is I did do some math based on the school district memo that they levied $469,000. We're about 41% of that. There's 4,500 and some homes in the village. So the average impact of this is a little less than $40 per household. Does that sound like my math is right on that? I'm saying the average across the village, which is a $500,000 home, would be about $39.99. Yeah. Okay. So that's not as big of a problem as I thought it was when I first heard about it. So that kind of tempered my enthusiasm for this. And then Martin's memo talking about the work that might need to go into it. But the other thing that has really tempered my enthusiasm for this was the debate last week by the Democratic candidates for governor. Every single one of them said their intention is to bring this program to a responsible end, and that their first step, all of them said their first step would be to publicly show what portion of your tax bill is going to private and charter schools. So why don't we just wait until the election's over and see if we get a Democratic governor, and they will do this work rather than asking the village attorney and our village staff to put a lot of work into something that maybe is already happening.
Okay, Lynn.
I am 100% with Tim on that. I don't not support this. I am a former public school teacher. I think it's super important. I just think that the train is moving potentially in other areas of our government, and I think it would be cool to see them drive that and give us the guidance that we do not have the staff to do.
Matt?
I agree with Tim and Lane on this, and but moreover, so a couple of questions. So if the levy goes to the school district, why don't they just disclose it? Number one, I don't know who to answer that question.
Sorry?
Well, why can't the school district just disclose the cost? If the levy goes to them, it seems like their deal, you know. So I don't know why couldn't, what's stopping them from doing that? I guess. I'm looking at you, Martin, because I have no idea who else to look at, who would know, you know.
Well,
Run these options.
I mean, obviously they can communicate it through whatever channel they would want to communicate it. But from a tax perspective, property tax bill perspective, we could have it as an insert. It looks like Cottage Grove elected to do that. So yeah, there's other options other than putting it on the face of the property tax bill. That could be
And the
explored.
reason I ask, honestly, is at what point do we stop? Right? I think it's good. I mean, but we just approved a bunch of vouchers for the village, right? Like, do we list all that? That's already publicly disclosed. So, you know, that's what I'm struggling with a bit. But this is an important issue, but there's a lot of other important issues as well. So, how much paper are we sending it at some point? So, that's it. It was more of a comment than a question. So,
I would just counter one point to that is this is not currently publicly exposed. This is not publicly reported anywhere. I mean, I did some back of the envelope math to get to that $40 number, but that's a number that was completely opaque up until we got this memo from the school district that gave us the total amount. And I'm still just sort of, like I said, back of the envelope math. So if there was an insert, I think that would be outstanding.
okay. Sorry, Rick.
I guess my concern about waiting is losing momentum. It's about the idea that if the only reason why you just had a group of people all agree on one side of the political spectrum that they're going to do this is because there's a popular push to have this done. I do appreciate if there's a cost involved with us doing it and time involved with us doing it, and there is no loss of momentum that I'd be willing to wait, but that would be my concern.
Tom?
In looking at the options that are listed in the memo, you know, option 2 has an appeal to me from the standpoint of working with the school district and supporting them in their efforts to communicate it. I would lean towards, you know, providing that information through a tax, you know, in an insert, just from the standpoint that seems logically like the easiest thing to do. When I think about my tax bill comes, it's already small and it's already hard to read. An insert would probably allow for a fuller explanation, maybe more observable by people. But I'm not in a position to know that, and I guess that's where I would lean towards the school district leading. You know, here's what we want to do. Here's how to do it. We're kind of theorizing. Well, we got to check this and check that, and we don't really know. I think we're supportive of being transparent on it and providing that information, but I would lean towards, you know, letting the school district guide us in that and help us with that. And we want to support them in that communication of it, and that would be through an insert. So, kind of where I'm at right now on it.
Lynn?
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I just thought of something as a potential also idea when you were talking about partnership there, Tom. Like, can we, as a dual entity, if the school board is interested, send a letter to, I mean, you can't really send it to the candidates right now. That's not fair, but like to the state legislature, to the governor's office, you know, expressing like that this is a thing that we as a municipality are very interested in, but between a number of decisions, we don't have the funds nor the staff time nor the bandwidth to do something like this. I think in some ways it almost speaks to two issues, right? Which is that like with current shared revenue, the way that it is, things are gonna just be tight. And it also points to the fact that like this is something that as a municipality, we are invested in, and we're hoping that we will accept like assistance on.
Okay, so this is a possible action item, so
President Van Campen, can I interrupt you for just a second?
please.
Mr. Wyland came in after the public comment, and he was just wondering if he could speak. It's your guys' choice to allow him to do that.
I'm not going to do that because of upcoming hearings and commissions,
Yep.
events that I expect to happen in the next few months, that if I violate procedure, I will be asked to do that again.
It's
With all due
perfectly
respect,
up to you.
Andy.
Yep.
Okay. So, this is an action item, or we can move on. So, I would entertain a motion if there is one coming from the floor. And Rick,
I have another question. There was a discussion also about that there's a disagreement on itemization in general, and that there is something somebody's going to make a determination coming forward that will clarify whether or not this is even a thing that we would have a right to do. Is that something that when we can expect that determination to come out?
There was something that I read.
Yeah, I said that. It was something that was told to me today.
okay, we'll move on. Let's see, I will move back, pardon me. Okay, item 8, unfinished business, item for discussion and possible action. A, resolution number 26-22, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $3,516,543 water and sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2026C, and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto, and approval of related financial assistance agreement related to the North Oak Sanitary Sewer Replacement and Richard Rose Lift Station Rehabilitation Project. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Higgins and Knipfer. Questions on this? Any comments from staff? Okay, we have a motion by Higgins, second by Knipfer. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The opposed say no. Motion carries. 8B, resolution number 26-23, a resolution approving a municipal court deposit schedule and court costs. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Knipfer and Higgins. Questions on this item? Seeing none. Motion by Knipfer, second by Higgins. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8C, third amendment to the tower and ground space lease with T-Mobile Central LLC for telecommunications site located on the village's Lincoln Road Water Tower, 5199 Lincoln Road. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Kirstover and Higgins. Questions? Tim?
Yeah, I noticed, on page 89, there's a note that the contractor shall follow applicable standards, but it doesn't reference OSHA standards. I continue to remain concerned about people working at height and not having adequate fall protection plans spelled out before they climb. I would really like to see OSHA referenced there. Well, maybe it's not page 89, sorry.
90 is the start.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
It's page 90.
That's
90?
where it starts. That's where it
Starts
starts
at
at.
Yep. Tim, is it in the agreement?
I think so, yeah.
Third Amendment to the. So you think it's in the agreement, Tim?
Actually, no, I think it's in.
I don't see it. In the plan? Maybe in the plan sheets?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I thought that.
Yeah, I don't know why I wrote page 89.
Maybe it's in this section. Yeah, I got it.
For you.
Page 99, section 5.
You said 99?
Page 125, compliance with laws.
Oh, 125? Oh.
125, compliance with laws. Tenant shall at tenant's cost and expense comply with all federal, state, or local county laws, rules, regulations, and ordinances.
So that page
Having-
125 is the second amendment, right? So this is the old amendment? That's the. Page 125.
Yeah, so an OSHA requirement would be included under those under the reference to federal requirements in that.
Right. I guess I'd just like to have it called out separately. Is that redundant? Is that problematic?
Yeah, it is redundant. The doesn't mean that it's not important if that's what you wanted. I think here it looks like that's the original lease of which this is an amendment to.
Right.
I guess the way to accomplish that, if we were to do it, would be to add that term in the amendment saying section such and such is amended hereby to add OSHA. But it's definitely applicable already.
Right. I mean, my concern has always been that a lot of this work is done by contractors of T-Mobile and the other cell companies, and it's usually a mom and pop operation, and they don't require safety protocols. And then, I mean, a couple of years ago, there were several people dying every year working on cell towers because they would fall to their death. And basically the big companies were escaping any kind of accountability because they're like, well, it's a contractor, you know, we told them to be safe. And
Yeah, if you wanted to sort of hold the lessee, in this case T-Mobile, accountable for the OSHA obligations of the subcontractors, that would be a different type of amendment. You know, that would be something that would sort of layer that responsibility on them. In other words, you know, you could create it as some kind of a default of the lease if someone working for them didn't do that, which is maybe what I'm hearing.
Right.
That would be more complicated. Yeah.
But you are of the opinion that it is covered as, it's just not spelled out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, OSHA regulations, to the extent they apply to a particular contractor, apply regardless of what we say.
Right. So
okay.
you want to amend the motion?
No.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay, we, motion by Christopher, second by Higgins. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. 8D, resolution number 26-24, authorizing hiring of Danielle Bassing as Assistant Director of the Oregon Area Senior Center. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Christopher, Higgins. Did you have anything you wanted to say on this? No? Okay, questions? Tom?
I just want to say I had the opportunity to visit with Danielle during the interview process. I think we're fortunate. There was other very good qualified candidates within the pool. We were lucky to have choices. They weren't easy choices, but I think I'm really pleased with what we came to a conclusion on, and I think we'll have another great addition to our senior staff.
Great, thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion by Christopher, second by Higgins. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 9, new business, items for discussion and/or possible action. A, review draft 2027 through 2036 capital improvement plan.
All right. Do I have the floor, Tom?
Yes.
All right.
Martin, would you like to provide us some discussion on this?
Sure. Yes, we're getting to the part of the year where you guys get to listen to me drone on a little bit. So we're going to talk about the 10-year capital improvement plan. I have a brief presentation that I'll try to breeze through, and then a couple things I want to show outside of the presentation that are in the packet, and some additional information that we have gotten since this actually came out on Wednesday, which changes some of the modeling that is showed in some of the things in the packet. So there's a lot of stuff in the packet. Obviously, there's like 300 pages worth of things related to this item. There's some background information that I like to provide just to help people kind of set and reset their understanding and expectations around what this is, including the debt piece of it that comes with it. Our financial policies that are on these two items are also in the packet. My review memo is in there, basically expanded version of what this presentation will be. And then all of the different schedules and worksheets and different summaries for all of the projects and items in the 10-year plan. Just to back up a couple steps and just set the stage. So there's a few things related to local government budget and finance that make all of our processes sort of uniform. Doesn't matter what local government you are. We have a calendar year budget, so January to December. That's by state law. And then we also have the property tax process, which is also set by state law. We collect property taxes in December. That's a huge portion of what funds our operation and our budget and our organization. And so everything that we do from a budget and finance standpoint sort of funnels into those things that have to happen late in the year. And so you back yourself up a few steps to get yourself in a position to have a budget ready in November so that you can collect property taxes in December. So we've been doing the sort of internal part of this, the management and planning process of it, the first half of the year. Now we're going to get to the board-facing stuff in August through November, when we're going to talk about CIPs and budgets and getting those approved, and then back into the cycle of taxing and then borrowing that we just came out of earlier this year. And of course, you can only get your tax levy once a year, so you better make it right. And then, of course, I think a lot of people on this board understand there's a difference between operating and capital. Operating, we're talking about services, staff, programs, routine costs, heavily restrictive, heavily regulated by the state. You have very narrow and limited options as a governing body for how you set your operating budget. We'll have those conversations in October, November. Right now, we're talking about the other side of the coin, which is the capital plan. And those are your big assets, your streets, your utilities, your buildings, your equipment. Funding is a lot more flexible on this side. And so you have a lot of options as a governing body, especially if you plan well. So in the packet is the capital improvement plan, the 10-year plan. The village does a 10-year plan. We update it annually. What it does is it identifies all of the projects, all of the equipment, all of the different costs, capital costs we estimate them, we propose a year for them to take place in, and then we identify possible funding sources. So Village is a capital asset heavy organization. We have over $100 million in assets when you account for land, streets, utilities, buildings, parks, vehicles, equipment. Very, very capital asset heavy. So the capital plan helps us make sure that we're identifying those needs early, making sure that different things are being coordinated in terms of timing. You don't want to repave a street and then come back and replace the water line a couple of years later. You don't want to you don't want to buy a ladder truck without having a fire station that fits it, for example. So it's really important to line up all those assets and line up all of that timing so that you can see it holistically. And of course, we have a bunch of plans, right? We have a ton of things that we adopt from goals and objectives. We have a comprehensive plan. We have a parks plan. We have park master plans. We have needs assessments. We have all sorts of things. And the capital plan really is sort of the bridge that turns some of those more abstract things into actual, what is it really going to take to fund and do these projects and goals. We do have a capital plan policy that's adopted by the board. That's how we make this whole thing function and how it comes together and why it's here before you and the way that it's before you. Starts out with departments identifying the needs. We do a little bit of modeling and testing in terms of potential impacts, and we'll get into those. And then we're really into that part 3, which is where you guys start to be able to review it and set the direction. And then once we get through that review, then we start to talk about actual budgeting for next year. So broad strokes, the capital plan, the new 10-year capital plan that's in your packet and before you, $172 million in total investment over 10 years. 70% of that is really that core sort of infrastructure that we do, water, sewer, streets, and stormwater. Annual capital spending ranges from about 12.5 to 24.7 million. It is 12.5 million less than last year's plan. And that's primarily because this year happened to be a really big year, right? We had the senior center facility project. We have the wastewater treatment plant project going on. We kind of got over the hump of the largest portion of those costs this year, so those have moved out. And that's what's driving that slightly less amount from compared to last year's plan. Again, as I mentioned, about 70% is really that core infrastructure, so you can see it broken down by functions here a little bit more. Water and sewer make up the biggest chunk of that 172. Streets and stormwater follow. And then about 10% of the plan is for fire and EMS, another 10% is for parks. That facilities, equipment, and tech, that 10 million, that's really that capital asset replacement, major maintenance, those sorts of things. And then the senior center has a little bit left in its financing plan to borrow for 2027. Over 10 years, you can see kind of the peaks and valleys of the spending. 2027 has been targeted as a larger year for the last couple of years because we are having some of those hanging on projects bigger projects that we have started either this year or the year before, and those are going to be wrapping up. And then you can see how it plays out for the rest of the 10 years. When you look at the projects, the major projects over those 10 years, there's almost about half of the cost, or 82 million of that 172, is really tied up in 11 projects. Obviously, the fire and EMS station project, which we had some conversation last week at the joint meeting, that's a project that's out there. We know we need to have some funding set aside for something coming down the line there. The wastewater treatment plant, phase 1 is already under construction. We have a little bit left that we're anticipating to spend in 27 to finish that one off. The financing is all done with that project and approved. We're just documenting that some will be spent in 27. There's a second phase coming there that's been long planned later this decade. And then we have Wolf Street, County Trunk Highway MM reconstruction, phase 1 next year. And then there's a second phase coming later in the decade. And then you see a lot of it's tied up in street reconstruction, utility replacement, stormwater, those sort of bigger projects there. And then, of course, the senior center And then the elevated water tower, which we talked about, I believe, at the last meeting. So that's sort of happening and in motion. That's coming in 2029. And then West Side Conservation Park improvements. We did a master plan last year that got approved. And so the capital plan, again, is taking those sort of goals and objectives and prioritizing them and breaking them out. And then over that 10 years, it's about $5 million. So when we talk about capital planning, it's hard not to talk about debt because debt is sort of the underlying funding source that ensures that we can carry some of these things forward. Just like in your personal life, there is good debt and there's bad debt, and it's the same thing for local governments. If we did not use debt, we could not do half or even maybe 10 or even 20% or even less than that of what we need to do in terms of infrastructure replacement and equipment replacement. We could never save the amount of cash that is needed to fund and maintain the level of infrastructure and assets that a local government needs to maintain. Another thing that debt does when it's done well is it does something called intergenerational equity. So take, for example, a library project, a library building. We did not pay for that whole project the year it was built. We financed it through debt, at least a good portion of it. And so we will pay for that over 20 years, and that asset will last, presumably, for 20 years or longer. And so residents who use that long-lived asset over that time get to share in the cost of that. So today's taxpayers are not taking on the full burden of that. People will move, people will come in, people will leave. They also get to pay for that asset. And then debt also preserves financial flexibility. So we don't want to draw down our reserves. We want to make sure that we have some. We want to have a smooth tax rate. We want to be able to move forward on multiple different issues at the same time. And that's what, when debt is managed well, you can do those things. So there's really two things we look at when we look at capital planning for the next 10 years and debt. We look at two thresholds. One is there is a legal maximum of the amount of debt that a local government can hold. That is 5% of the village's equalized value. And then the village, like many other local governments, we have a self-imposed limit. So we have set a policy that we will only go up to 75% of that legal limit. And the reason for that is you want to preserve some capacity for emergencies, right? If something comes up, something catastrophic, tornado wipes out a variety of different facilities and you need a lot of cash and we need to borrow to set up temporary spaces, that sort of thing. Hopefully, the federal or state government will come back and help us out there. But initially, you might need to spend a ton of money and you want to have some capacity to be able to do that. So when we do our capital planning and our modeling of debt, which we'll take a look at here in a little bit, as if you've been on the board for a few years, you know that we do our modeling very, very conservatively. So when we're looking at how we compare in terms of our 5% of our equalized value, and if we're getting close to that, we estimate a 2% increase in equalized value year over year. So obviously if your equalized value is going up, your debt capacity amount can go up. And if we assume a 2%, that's a pretty conservative growth in that because we've averaged actually 8% year over year in equalized value growth. So again, very conservative in our projections. We also assume in our projections and our modeling that basically all of the eligible projects in the plan are going to be paid for with debt. So it kind of gives you a worst case scenario of this is what this could look like if we really needed to or wanted to do all these projects and we needed to have the funding and we needed to use debt for all these things. This is what it would look like. It's far easier to kind of come back from that high end and come down than starting somewhere else and trying to go on top of that. So you can see how that's played out here in the last couple of years. At this time in 2025 and this time in 2024 when the capital plans were presented. In 2024, for example, we projected that we would need 8.5 million in borrowing. We ended up borrowing 6.5, and you can see we expected 6 million in 25. We ended up 4.6 actual borrowed. And you can see the little marginal difference in 2026. When you look at the forecast for where we thought debt would impact on property taxes, in 2022, our model had 2027 reaching $3.08 per $1,000 in value. We're actually at $2.07 in reality, so that came in a lot less than we expected. And then if you look at our 2022 forecast of where we'd be from a debt limit standpoint in 27, it was about 70%. We are actually at 52% of our debt limit right now. So we plan for the worst, and then we have some good outcomes. And that way, Lynn can always say that we came in under budget. So, as I mentioned, when you look at the models that are in there, about 94% of the plan is modeled with debt. And if I was a betting person, I would take the under on that. We will almost certainly not fund 94% of that plan with debt, but we assume it because that's about the worst case scenario. And then here, you can kind of see the breakdown of what that looks like. An important distinction I want to draw here is general obligation debt is debt that is backed by property taxes. So that's when you're looking at these thresholds, this 5% of equalized value, that's your legal generalized obligation debt capacity. So that's really your government stuff, right? What you do as a government falls under that. When we talk about utilities, that's a little bit different of a ball game. You can do what's known as water and sewer revenue bonds. Those are backed by utility rates, and they do not, they're not subject to this legal maximum. So they kind of fall outside of that. When you're a smaller community, now you can put water and sewer stuff into general obligations, and certainly when you're a smaller community, it's very cost efficient to do that. We certainly have some of our older obligations, some water and sewer stuff that's under GO. But when you become a little bit larger and you're investing in your capital infrastructure and you're growing, you start to kind of pull those things apart because your debt capacity starts to go up and you don't want all that water sewer stuff sitting under there. You want to try to free up your general obligation capacity as much as possible. And so I think over the last few years, the village has become a lot more sophisticated in that, and we are separating those things out a little bit more, knowing that we have the projects that we have going on and trying to keep as much GO capacity as we can. So this is referenced earlier. So if you look at the plan, you look at some of the modeling right now, right now with what is proposed and how it's modeled in terms of these conservative variables, starting in 2033, we do have what is a projected overage of our self-imposed limit. So in 2033 and 2034, our debt usage peaks at 78% of our legal maximum. And of course, we have 75% is our self-imposed. So we do go over that for a few years later in the plan. Not by a whole lot, but it does go about peaks at almost 4 million over in 2033. So there's a few options we can take to address this. Number one is equalized values, obviously, are the calculation for how these percentages get made. And the model that's in your packet obviously assumes sort of the conservative 2% increase. These rates come out, or these values come out every August. They're published by the state. And we did get those preliminary estimates from the state were published on Friday. And so I have a little bit extra added onto this presentation to show what that looks like now. But certainly if that goes up higher than what we project, then this percentage goes down. Other options, we could assume that we will have other sources. For example, parks improvement projects. You can use impact fees, and we can assume that we are going to use impact fees rather than borrowing in some cases. That will drive down the usage of your debt. You can adjust the timing or scope of things. Certainly last year, we almost had a very similar model in our initial modeling as we do this year. We ended up moving some streets and parks projects around. We played around with the fire and EMS station, ended up putting that a little bit farther out, and that ended up balancing out some of these thresholds and some of these benchmarks that we look at. Another thing that we can look at, and we are looking at, and we do have it planned for the 2027 budget, is looking at a stormwater utility. So right now, stormwater costs are on that general obligation side. And if you develop a stormwater utility, instead of just water and sewer revenue bonds, you could also have stormwater revenue bonds, and they would be backed by stormwater utility rates rather than backed by property taxes. So you could take those few millions of dollars related to stormwater, and they would be moved from that geo debt into their own revenue debt. One thing to think about, when we're thinking about moving things around and sort of deferring things, it becomes very easy to just move things, right? Just, well, that's in a couple of years, let's move it out even more years, and we can make, these things work and look a little bit better. I think this board probably knows very well, especially in recent years with inflation, that is a very real thing. You move things out, things get more costly. Obviously, during that time when you're deferring, things continue to deteriorate. Things like water leaks become very disruptive. Projects become more expensive. Things become more urgent. Unplanned things might have to be moved up. And then obviously you lose community benefits too when you defer. So there's things like safety and reliability and quality of life that a lot of these capital improvement projects speak to. You move those out and you lose those benefits. But also the repeated deferral, it almost becomes a little bit more of a problem than just the project itself. When you keep kicking it around, it sort of becomes a little bit of a political football. After a time, it starts narrowing the amount of options you have as a board. And so then people, I'm reminded of the phrase, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up, right? It's not the project that's the problem, it's that it just keeps getting fumbled around, and that becomes kind of the frustration and the mismanagement of it all. And so people can start to feel a little bit less trust in the planning and engagement that we do as a village when that happens over and over again. I mentioned before we're at about 52% of our legal debt limit. Just for context, is that high? Is that low compared to folks, other communities in Dane County? I'd say it's, for a community our size that is growing and is investing in its capital assets, it's pretty typical. Communities like Oregon hover around 40%, 50%, maybe peak around 60, if you're doing some heavy capital investment. So you can see there's a lot of communities that are right in the mix there. Their data is 24, that's the most recent data for communities that's been released by the Department of Revenue. In 24, we were at 43%, but we've obviously done a couple of projects since then. So yeah, smaller communities, if you're doing a street project in a small community, it takes up that capacity real quick because it's the same cost to do a project in Brooklyn as it is in Oregon. And so you tend to see smaller communities a little bit higher, especially if they're investing in their capital assets, just because that capacity gets eaten up. You start to see them in the 50s or 60%. And then larger communities, you tend to see more lower. They're kind of in the 20 to 30%, just because a community like Madison or Fitchburg or Sun Prairie or Middleton, their equalized value is just exponentially larger, and it just doesn't have as big of an impact from a percentage or usage standpoint for those communities. Taxes on debt service. So this is another thing that we model. So you have those kind of benchmarks for like how much debt from a legal standpoint and just self-imposed standpoint. But then there's also how much do these projects add in taxes? That's a little bit more subjective. So as the village has done for the last about 10 years, knowing that all these facility projects will be coming forward, the village has tried to organize its debt around what you're seeing here, which is kind of this gradual increase year over year where we're trying to build in additional property taxes to support all of these projects that have happened without spiking, right? Without a huge spike. You know, a project comes on and then all of a sudden you see $1,000 added in to your tax bill. We've been trying and for many, many years, the staff and consultants have been trying to slowly inch that up so that we can accommodate all these projects in an incremental fashion. And so that's what you're still seeing here with all of the projects that we have in the plan is, again, not trying to have a major spike within the 10 years, but just that gradual shift up of about $100, $122 a year to accommodate the different projects and things that are in there. So it's about $1,000 more to this is a median value home over that 10-year period. So again, it helps to contextualize, you know, is this a lot? How are we comparing ourselves to other communities? Are we just way out of bounds here? If we added $1,000 to a $500,000 home, which is about the median value home in Oregon, we would still be in the mix with some of our city and village peers in Dane County in terms of overall tax impact. So this is showing the total property tax on a $500,000 home. This includes not just the village, but your school district, tech college, and who am I missing? County. So right now, looking at last year's, the people on the screen here, it's not showing all 28 cities and villages, but we are the 18th highest of 28 or 11th lowest. Our taxes are about $108 below average for Dane County cities and villages and about $127 below the median. So we're kind of sitting a little bit in the middle of things when you look at all 28 cities and villages. Just looking at 2027 specifically, because that's the more immediate interest. You can see a little bit more breakdown of where those $24.6 million are going. Obviously, the single biggest project is Senior Center. We have a little bit of that financing that we have planned to take place in 2027. Wolf Street is the big street improvement project that's been planned here for a couple of years. Wastewater treatment plant phase 1, that one, as I mentioned, is going to be wrapping up. That project's already underway. Just a little bit more will be spent there in 27. Park Street by the Senior Center will be reconstructed. That's been planned in tandem with the Senior Center project. And then Bethel Greenacre, of course, what we talked about before is the park improvement project that was targeted for 2027. The rest there are the all other. Those are your vehicle replacements, your major maintenance facility stuff, major park maintenance, all sorts of equipment, vehicles, planning, some intangible assets with planning exercises and that sort of thing. So about 61% of that 24 million is wrapped up in those three projects there, Senior Center, treatment plant, and Wolf Street. This mixture of financing, 51% go debt. That's probably fairly close to where it will end up as we get closer in each year. We start to, be able to refine that number, and that's probably roughly where that may end up being. Just a note on utility rates. So all of this is talking about, again, that general obligation debt and how it impacts property taxes. Obviously, there's a huge portion of the capital plan that is tied up in utilities. Utilities operate on a little bit different ballgame than the property taxes and the general fund side. Obviously, projects and debt influence rates. But utilities can operate on a little bit more flexible calendar because they're not necessarily tied to that, that sort of strict property tax timeline that happens at the end of the year. You can generally change your utility rates at any time in the year. Obviously, there's different approvals and regulatory processes that you have to go through, but it is a little bit more flexible in that respect. What we typically do is we have some modeling, obviously, for property taxes and impact in the packet. We do a similar type of analysis for utilities. It's a little bit more unique. That gets presented by our financial advisor, Ellers, on September 21st, so we can look at how does the CIP affect potential utility rates in the future. So that'll be coming in the next few meetings. So just a couple things on advice, and a couple slides here to wrap up, and then there's a couple things I want to show outside of this presentation that are in the packet. But there isn't very many decisions that you as an elected body make that are consequential to the macro level effect of the entire community as the capital plan. When we're talking about facilities, we're talking about parks, we're talking about streets, your infrastructure, financial obligations that those things take on. These tend to be sort of the legacies, right, that boards leave behind is what were the decisions made and obviously all of the things that flow out of that in terms of effect on community and benefits and otherwise. So, we're obviously living in the time where, decades of decisions made the community that we are right now. Same thing for this board and decades moving forward. So obviously the staff has a responsibility to put the plan forward, to do the work that it has done, but this is your guys' plan. This is the village board's plan. You guys own this. You guys get to decide priorities, timing, funding, what is acceptable from financial impact, all of those things. So take ownership over it. I would always encourage, obviously the board speaks with one voice, so if you have preferences, this is the time to talk through those things with your fellow board members. As staff, we can't take direction one way or the other from one individual board member. We need to hear that from that one voice from the entire board so that we know exactly how we need to move and what we need to be doing. And then again, just direct early. Once you get so far down the line, your options start to narrow. If you've designed things, if you've procured a grant or you procured donations, or you're starting to coordinate with different projects and timing of projects, very quickly, if you decide to change course, you can tumble way back down the course of events that have already occurred, and you waste a whole lot of time, and you start to lose a lot of choices. So it's good to get what you feel out early, and speak about that and make those decisions early. This is the time to do that. So I would say, there's three things you want to look at as a board when you're looking at this plan. Number one, obviously projects and scheduling. Do you support the projects? Do you support the timing of the projects? Are there things you want to move up, things you want to move back, things that need to be changed in scope, expanded, removed, what have you? Property tax impact, again, it's going to be subjective. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with the trajectory? If not, what's the target? What are we looking for? That helps kind of guide what we need to revise. And then, of course, debt capacity. Obviously, there's a legal limit that we want to be cognizant of. There's a self-imposed limit that we want to be cognizant of. And then, what is the level of comfort with the village board where those are starting to fall? So, multiple meetings. We'll have this on the village board agenda. Next meeting, we'll have it on the 8th. It's back on the agenda on September 21st as well. We look for action from the board on September 21st to approve the plan. Ellers will be here. They'll show us some additional modeling and some additional financial projections. They'll also show us the utility side of the equation. But then when we get out of that September 21st meeting, October is really going to start that budget review for 2027 specifically. So then we have the direction out of this that, okay, we're taking what's in 2027 in the capital plan and we're translating that into the budget. So going to show just a couple of different things really quick. So in the packet, just to orient everybody, there's a bunch of stuff in there, as I mentioned. There is a background on capital improvement planning, debt management. There are our policies, our adopted policies. You know, why does the village staff do it this way, or why are we scheduling it this way, or how did this happen this way? You can most likely go back to a policy and see that the staff has some direction or some framework that we are working within, and that's why it's being done that way. My memo that talks about really everything that I just presented on, just in a lot more detail. And then we have our schedules that are in there. Let's see, where is this? Here we go. So this is the full consolidated CIP schedule that's in the packet on page 185. It lists every single project, shows them timed out year over year when they're happening right now, and has some totals there at the end, and then it shows these two financial models that I'll talk about in just a second a little bit more. And then elsewhere in the packet has a bunch of different worksheets and a bunch of different schedules, just summarizing it in different ways. On page 196, it's basically broken down by department totals. So you can see clerk, community development, what have you, each year, what they're looking at, totals for that, totals by year. And then if you go scroll a little bit farther, you can see it broken down by department. So of that clerk's amount, you know, what are those projects? Those are projects that are listed. Here they are programmed in the years. And then when you go beyond that, you have the individual project sheets. So that describes each of the projects that are listed in the capital plan along with the dollar amounts. On these models, so let's take a look at the debt capacity model. So this is the model that shows us what is the impact of the capital plan and the conservative debt financing model that goes with it. Where will that take our debt capacity? And so that's where get over here and you can see that statutory, there's that legal limit that we were talking about. And then there's the policy limit, and that's the self-imposed limit that we have. And so I was showing that slide before. Here's that peak of 78% of the legal limit in 23 and 24. That means we're going over our self-imposed limit by a little bit. And you can see the amounts that we go over in those years. That's what that model is showing. And then on the property tax impact, you can see the effect on a median valued home. So in 2027, for $546,000 home will have about a $1,132 on its property tax bill attributable to the village's debt service. So we have to make payments. This amount is covering that payment in property taxes. And so then you can see that gradual increase, that incline that I showed in that slide, about $120 every year to support debt service for everything that is in the capital plan, and then it kind of peaks out on that 10-year horizon. Now, forget everything I just said. So on the debt impact, in terms of how it impacts on our capacity. So preliminary equalized values were published on Friday. So this was post-packet publishing. So the preliminary estimate has our equalized value going up about 8.8%, which is right in line with our annual average of 8% the last 10 years. Now, most of that is appreciation of existing property value. So whatever, obviously, home values are going up, that's what that is. Our equalized value is going up. Some of that is obviously new construction value, obviously building a lot of housing and doing some other projects in town, so there's some contribution there as well. So when we look at, so I've plugged in the equalized value that's been published, which is at 2.3 billion. And if we start to model that, so these models will now be updated for your next meeting. But here's a sneak peek. So we were at, as I said, 52% this year of our debt value, of our debt capacity. And now with this change, we are now at 48%. So we have created some capacity. And now the rest of this model here still assumes 2% increases beyond this year. So we're still assuming conservatively beyond. And so just that effect alone has now put us in compliance with our own self-imposed debt policy. We peak at about 75% of our debt capacity, just below that. So we have resolved that issue, and without changing any projects or any scheduling in the plan. Now, if you're curious, if you're saying, well, Martin, that 2% is awfully conservative, and it is, compared to what we've had recently. If we assume a 5% increase year over year from what we now know is our 2026 equalized value, we peak at 60%, which I think is a very realistic outcome that could have. I think, barring some sort of recession or something like that, having significant economic consequences, I think it's probably realistic, a plausible scenario that we increase in equalized value 5% every year. So that is what 5% looks like. If you were to assume that we would continue on the run that we have been over the last 10 years, and assume 8%, well, we barely peak above 50% throughout the 10 years at all. And that's really how we've managed to, all of these projects that have happened from a capacity standpoint, the value, the equalized value, the growth of the village has really run wild here in the last 5-6 years. And that has really kept us, as I mentioned before, in 2022, we projected that we'd be at about 70% of our value. That equalized value keeps going up and up. And so that leaves us at 42% or 48% of our limit currently. So probably feel pretty good about these assumptions. Impact on property taxes is probably marginally affected by this because most of this is value that is coming from appreciation of existing value. So everybody's values are going up, so costs are just kind of being, divided out amongst everybody that already exists. So, you might see a little bit with new construction value, you might see these numbers tinker down maybe just a little bit based on this new value. But overall, I think I would expect that this will mostly stay the same as we move forward. So that is all I have to say, and we are happy to take questions and get direction from here on out.
Probably would have to wave at me. Tim.
I do have a question. Maybe you know what happened in 2008 and 2009 when property values plummeted. Were there municipalities where their debt capacity was suddenly above the 5% and they were, what happens if that happens?
I don't know what happens when that happens. I believe, if you look at the data that the DOR puts out, there are some communities that are above 100%. I believe what happens is they start pulling back shared revenue from you. They start penalizing you in other ways. And so, it's kind of the zero-sum game where, we're just going to keep doing things, but then they're going to start pulling things away from you.
Would that affect your bond rating eventually?
Yeah, eventually it would, yes. One thing that credit rating agencies, every year we have to do, Lisa and I do an interview with Moody's, and they go back and they look at all this stuff that you guys are looking at right now and what's been approved, and they put information out there to the market. When we go out to borrow, that impacts the type of interest rates and financing that we can get. And in recent years, the Moody's analysts are very happy with the financial planning, the amount of work and that goes into this, the amount of modeling, everything that we're doing, and how everything looks really gives us very favorable rates. And yeah, I would have to imagine if you're kind of out of order there, it's going to really hurt you in terms of debt.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming if that happened, like 2008, it would happen to everybody. So it's just curious.
Yeah, something like that really changes the whole ball game. It had so many downstream effects on all sorts of weird things, from tax increment finance districts. The legislature had to legislate a lot of different things to try to accommodate that recession so that communities didn't fall into worse conditions. But yeah, you had communities that were, their values were going down. I can remember because I was an intern at the time coming out of this, that time. And it's interesting. I remember people complaining that their values were going down back then. They were upset about that. So yeah, it's just a whole different ball game.
Oh, I was just going to make a couple of comments for the things that I see right away. I know we review this multiple times this year, so I'm sure we will have lots of opportunities, but I'm really excited to see what's coming up in the next couple of years. These are projects that we have been holding on to or pushing off just a little bit. So things like the solar panels for Village Hall, I think, are important. I think the CIP is always one of those things where I get a little bit caught up in the future, and then I remind myself that what we're doing in the current is also a long-term impact. And so I like to see some of these sustainable moves being made. And I know, like, for Chief and Lauren, there's not a lot of opportunity here, but there's a lot of vehicles and things like that. And so anytime that we can focus on, a hybrid or some sort of, sustainable feature, I think that's a nice place for us to be, because while I care very deeply about the dollars and cents of it all, which Chief Linsmeyer would appreciate that saying, I do think that the world that we live in and the environment that we're leaving for our kids and things like that, they can't necessarily get expressed on a spreadsheet. And I've always thought that the village does an exemplary a job in managing our finances and where we spend our money and for what assets we get for that. But I think we can continue to push the envelope to try and diversify some of the things that we have to being, sustainable and really thoughtful for the generation of Oregon residents that are coming in the next 10 years. So I think I kind of balance the numbers and then the real world impact that these things are, because I think sometimes you can lose that. So I'm excited to see what we can do in the next couple of years, for sure.
Anybody else? Tim?
Just to build on Lynn's point, are there police departments in the area that are using electric vehicles? Get any feedback on how it's working for them?
Yeah, so the largest one would be the city of Madison. Their fleet supervisor came to one of our chiefs meetings. They just are not making them to a level yet where they can handle so much. There's so much pull that we get from the vehicle, whether it's the radio, the lights, the siren, and it's not uncommon to be on scene with the car running for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. So just right now, there's not enough success as far as law enforcement getting that benefit. But it's something we're constantly monitoring.
Okay. Anybody else? Rick?
Just thank you for all of the information that gets brought so that I can digest this and try and make a really good decision for the community. I'm still continuing to digest this, and one of the things that did happen to pop up that I was just curious about is a line item about purchase of body and vehicle cameras. It was, I think, $21,000 for 10 years, I believe. Is that just equipment because it's part of the CIP? And I'm just, or is that a new policy expansion, continuation of a current policy?
Sure. So our body worn camera system is Axon, which is certainly one of the better ones in my opinion. And with Axon, you buy, they call it a la carte, but it's like a package. So we get our body worn cameras. We've had those for quite a while. We definitely need the squad cameras. It's a big liability piece, especially for the back seat. If, heaven forbid, something in the back of the squad happens when they're in custody, we have some record of that. And then our tasers. So it's all put together in a contract package, and it's spread out throughout our CIP.
Thank you. I'm actually probably more interested and concerned about the overall expansion of the cost of it, the operating parts of this.
Yeah, it's, what I've learned is you pay for what you get. We've had a different company before this one. It was very problematic. And when you're talking about a case where you've taken someone into custody and they're booked in on a misdemeanor or felony, the liability to the village can be pretty large. So having the platform that's very reliable, and Axon has a lot of layers to their system, constantly improving as well. I would be concerned if we moved away from Axon, and in fact a lot of agencies are moving into Axon even though it is very expensive. They just are a higher quality product.
Thank you. I guess the only other comment would be, and really kind of half joking, is it possible that we could actually have the entire fire department as part of the water utility? They use a lot of water, and then we could borrow based on that? I don't know, just thought.
You want to respond? I don't know what you're
Comment
looking for
stands
there.
on its own. Yeah.
Are there other comments for?
Lauren can be the fire chief.
I have a question about. I have a question about, so we're doing fundraising for the senior center, and let's say we have a really successful fundraising project, and we raise, multiple millions of dollars.
Yes.
Does that just pay down that debt, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the way that we've sort of set that whole thing up is, might be helpful if I go right to this project. So the idea of how we set that financing up was, we paid for the bulk of the project through debt this year. We borrowed about $15 million this year for that project. And so we're under construction, and the idea is next year, obviously we're committed to the project. We're going to have to find that money somewhere. We've built in that we will take on the rest of the debt that's needed in 2027 to finish that off. But we do have a lot of different other funding sources that are helping to offset that final amount. We do have, this is one of those projects where we actually have some other stuff identified. There is about $500,000 that is sitting in our capital funds that can be used for this project. We just approved that $200,000 grant from the state. We're affording forward some tax credits that we got off of the library projects, solar panels. Those are coming forward to help pay for solar begets solar. So there'll be solar on the senior center project. And then we also already have some donations that we've accumulated for the project over the years, about $300,000. And so anything that comes in now, between now and the time that we have to borrow for that debt in March or April next year, we can lower these amounts that are sitting. So it's about $3.6 million in geo debt. Interestingly, the parking lot improvements we can actually put under our tax increment District 5. So we can get some money that comes back from that district to pay for those part of the improvements. But yeah, anything that we bring in from now until then, that number might decrease by the time we get to that. And that's kind of speaks to what I was talking about is, you know, we've been doing a good job of assuming a lot, and then by the time we actually go to borrow, it's a little bit less. And even stuff that comes in maybe even after we borrow, we could use towards debt service payments to lower the property tax impact for that project over the next few years using some of those donations.
We found our target, 3.6 million.
Okay. There you go. Anybody else?
Good numbers.
How much you got?
Okay, thank you, Martin. Okay, item 10, reports of village officer, department heads, and consultants for information only. In your packet, the administrator report, police chief report, committee release from July 20th, 2026 regarding operating while intoxicated. First offense arrest.
127 miles an hour.
Yikes.
That's not uncommon. Sadly, no, that's not uncommon.
Was it uncommon that he'd been 3 times without a driver's license?
No.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Is it uncommon it's 8:18 a.m.?
Yeah, I would say that's a little less common. And also throwing an empty beer can out the window.
Yeah.
As we were stopping them. Definitely interesting case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see, Southern Dane County Shared Fire Protection and Emergency Medical Services Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan Project Update dated July 24th, 2026 from McMahon Associates in your packet. Questions? And also Village Consulting Engineer, June 2026 monthly report for wastewater upgrades project from Town and Country Engineering. Questions? No. Tom?
Are we still on track with that project? Nobody's talked about a timeline in relationship to it for a while, so.
Nope, we are on schedule with it.
Okay. Item 11, announcements and miscellaneous business. Announcements, comments, communications, upcoming meetings and events, and miscellaneous business. Department heads or staff. Chief.
Yes, just a couple things here. First of all, today we had our golf outing fundraiser for our K-9 unit. Thank you to those who were able to make it. We really appreciate the support. That is one of our strongest fundraising events, and it really, truly does help keep the program going, so thank you so much. National Night Out is tomorrow night from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you haven't been there and if you have kids, please come down. It's really fun. My 2 boys still talk about it to this day. The best part, watching that Black Hawk helicopter land. That is just breathtaking. What's really neat is in the past, we've actually had pilots who have families from the Oregon area, so it just kind of brings some uniqueness to it. But yeah, hope to see everyone down there. And then also, you know, a special thank you to Trustee Lease for doing a ride-along with our officer. Anytime our officers can show you what they do and the challenges, the equipment we use, things like that, we're more than welcome and invite you to do so. It sounds like you had quite the busy night. We had a very busy weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping you got to see some good stuff. But even with these questions such as, you know, Axon, body cameras, what's the benefit to those? We can show you the layers of that and why, you know, like even comes down to how easy it is to share records through that system, redaction. There's just so many layers. But certainly welcome any of you to ride along.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Speak. Well, Chief, you preempted me because I was going to thank you for allowing me the opportunity, number one. But what I wanted to say, I've been on ride-alongs in other police departments and that before. And what struck me as unique to Oregon wasn't the law enforcement piece, which we all appreciate, I appreciate just tremendously, was when I saw it in action, it was the hustle and the adaptability of your officers, the men and women, just adapting to unique situations, pulling in people that were off duty to cover for those because of hospital watch, and seeing it all flow just smoothly. The dedication of your men and women was truly impressive and left a lasting impression on me. And I keep sharing it with everybody I talk to. So I said, next time you come to encounter with an Oregon police officer, it's going to be awesome. And they're like, I don't really want to. I'm like, well, that's fair, but it's going to be really good, So no, it was really impressive with limited resources and how you guys have to adapt and flow and get people up to Winnebago on on hospital watch and how many officers that takes. And I didn't realize you didn't get support from local PDs like in Madison when you're at the hospital there. I figured if you needed to get somebody in the back of a car, somebody else could help. But no, we responded to that and did that. And anyways, super impressive. Thank you again, Chief. I appreciate it. So.
Anybody else? Let's see, board members.
Is this future agenda items?
No, but
Okay.
up next. I had sent out a message asking for someone to step in for me for the first responder event because, again, this year, and Lynn was kind enough to do it last year. But Trustee Lease has agreed to do that for us, so thank you very much.
Thanks,
I appreciate you doing that. It's a great event. Any other announcements? Okay, Rick, first future agenda items.
I just wanted to go back and make sure that in the second week of November that we would, or the second meeting in November, we would review the property tax transparency plan. So if that gives us, after the elections, an opportunity to decide if we want to move forward with something
Okay.
locally.
All right. Anybody else?
I have a question about events, if that's okay. Do we have anything planned in the village for the 25th anniversary of September 11th this year? Do we know of anything?
I'm aware of. No.
I will say, the 20th was planned by Deb Bossingham, who is a resident here. I could certainly ask her if there's any plans of that, but I haven't heard anything.
Anybody else?
To that point, I wonder if the fire department is doing
Sorry?
anything. I said to that point, I wonder if the fire department is
that's
doing
right, yeah.
anything, right?
I'll ask the chief.
That's a good thought. Okay, as our business is concluded, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You will. All right. Have you been to?